The sky above the council spire was too clean, like it had never known smoke. No storms, no contrails, no blood. Captain Elias Rourke stared up at that sterile, turquoise nothing and felt his molars grind. He'd seen real skies, skies choked with ash and defiance. This place, it was a painting on glass. It made his skin itch. He adjusted the black and iron collar of his formal uniform, stiff with diplomatic starch. It still smelled faintly of fire suppressant. The Elanthium insisted on clean contact. No weapons, no armor, no contaminants. So the diplomats came scrubbed and sanitized like specimens in a petri dish. Rourke came anyway, scars and all. A chime rang in his implant. Time. He squared his shoulders, ran a gloved thumb over the old burn mark on his wrist, and stepped into the Hall of Species. It was quiet, not silent. Nothing on the scale was truly silent, but quiet in that deep, museum way, like the walls disapproved of breathing. Amphiboid delegates floated in nutrient pods. Silicon-based life forms pulsed behind containment fields. Dozens of races, thousands of minds, all humming in perfect harmony. And then there was the human delegation. 4 of them. 2 from Earth's UN Science Directorate. Pale, careful, anxious. 1 linguist. 1 exosociologist. Beside them stood a woman from the Martian Terran Accord. Shaved head, knuckle tattoos, cybernetic eye. She didn't blink much. And then there was Rourke, a soldier, their symbol of trust, or a warning. He wasn't sure which anymore. Zervel descended like all Elanthium, without sound, like a spider made of pearl and ice. For legs, 2 arms, no visible mouth. Its voice, when it came, was a pressure behind the eyes. Captain Rourke, welcome. We hope you find the spire satisfactory. He didn't flinch. Satisfactory's fine. Better than most foxholes. We are unfamiliar with that term. Yeah, I figured. The chamber doors sealed behind them. Negotiations commenced. The humans came with gifts, language modules, data cores, cultural packets. They'd worked for decades to be here, to stand among the stars not as subjects, but equals. Elias said little, just watched, noted the subtle shifts, the glances, the smirks. The council listened to the presentations, patient, polite, and then the refusals began. Earth's genetic instability posed concerns. Our unpredictable history of violence was worrisome. Our neural architecture leaned too heavily on emotion, which compromised rational symbiosis. Translation: you're unstable. You're dangerous. You're not like us. The Martian woman snapped first. So what? Because we bled more, we're not welcome? Zervel didn't look at her. Because you continue to bleed. Laughter echoed down Rourke's spine. It wasn't funny. It was something else. Something darker. Recognition, maybe. He stood. You think emotion's a weakness? He asked, voice steady as steel under tension. No reply. Not really. You think because we scream when we're angry, cry when we grieve, and sing when we're scared, that we're broken? Still nothing. Let me tell you what you're really afraid of, he said, stepping forward, boots too loud for this silent cathedral. You see our ruins and don't understand how we're still here. You see our art and feel things you can't name. You hear our stories and start dreaming in color. Zervel twitched. Barely. We were born in fire, Rourke growled. We survived ice ages, extinctions, plagues, and worse, ourselves. We learned war before we learned farming. We built gods just to have someone to beg for mercy. And when they didn't answer, we learned to stand up anyway. The UN linguist was trying to wave him down. The Martian was smiling. You want clean? We're not clean. You want logic? We're not logical. We are love and rage and hope and madness. We're ugly and beautiful. We're contradiction made flesh. Zervel's voice pressed again. You threaten harmony. No, Rourke said, stepping onto the central dais. We challenge stagnation. He could feel them watching now. Not just the Elanthium. Everyone, every species in that chamber of glass and light was suddenly awake. I get it, he said, quieter now. You've built something stable, predictable, safe, but you've forgotten what it's like to need something, to hurt, to fight, to risk. You've forgotten that growth only comes from friction. The silence afterward wasn't polite. It was terrified. That night, back in his quarters, the denial came through. Earth was deemed a Category 4 species. Observation only, no alliances permitted. Trade blocked. Communication limited to non-reactive channels. The Martian woman punched the wall. The sociologist cried. The linguist tried to rationalize it. Elias poured a drink and watched the alien sun set with military detachment. He didn't speak until the others were gone. Then he opened the old case under his bunk. Inside, a small photo of his daughter taped to the stock of a rifle. She died in the Mars pterocollapses. He kept her close. She reminded him why he kept fighting. He recorded a message. Not for Earth, not for the Council, just for the void. We offered peace. You chose fear. But fear cuts both ways. He didn't send it. Not yet. He just listened to it. Let echo. In the orbital hangar, a human freighter crew was denied reentry. Council vessels began routine scans of all Terran ships. 2 diplomats were detained for biological contamination concerns, and word from the colonies was worse. 3 systems near the Alki border had gone dark. No explanation, just silence. Rourke stood on the outer deck, staring into stars that now looked a little colder, a little closer. He lit a cigarette, the last one he'd brought from home. Then the chime in his implant went off again. An encrypted message. No signature, just coordinates. Elias Rourke crushed the cigarette under his heel and walked away from the light. There was something moving in the dark, and it remembered how to burn. The dropship rattled like a dying lung. Myra Valdez gripped the crash webbing tight enough to leave nail marks in the synth fiber. She kept her eyes shut, not out of fear, but because she wanted to remember her brother's face exactly as it had looked the day he left for Vesta 4. Laughing, cradling a broken guitar. His last words still echoed in her skull. I'll bring you back a stone from the first mountain I climb. They never found his body. Just a crater. Just ash. The pilot barked into the comms. 30 seconds to ground. Myra's squad shuffled around her, murmuring prayers, checking magazines, making promises they wouldn't keep. No one talked to her. Not because she was cold. Because she didn't need words anymore. She'd been baptized in loss. It had taught her to speak violence fluently. The red light over the hatch went green. Then the world turned to thunder. They hit soil like a hammer hits a ribcage. Kinetic brakes screamed. The ramp dropped, and heat flooded in, thick, chemical, dry as bone. They ran into it anyway. Into the smoke. Into the fire. Cindergate wasn't a planet. It was a graveyard waiting for tenants. No sky. Just a sheet of static clinging to the atmosphere like a death shroud. Black rock cracked under their boots. Wind carried flecks of metal and powder bone. The Alki had seeded the zone with sonic disruptors. Half the unit was already bleeding from the ears. Myra didn't flinch. She moved like gravity owed her something. Her objective was simple: destroy the relay. A communication tower disguised as a mine shaft, buried beneath a kilometer of war-ravaged crust. The Council used it to coordinate fleet maneuvers in the sector. Take it down, and the local Alki command would be blind. Her squad leader, Lieutenant Brannick, was old-school Martian. Augmented spine, half a jaw replaced by chrome. He pointed to the ridge with a grimace that might have been a grin. Relays under that hill of shit, he said. Try not to die in the first 5 minutes. Myra tapped her brother's name. Danny, scratched into the side of her rifle. No promises. They pushed forward. Heat shimmered off the rocks. Somewhere ahead, an Alki drone chirped and burst into flame from a well-placed EMP grenade. The fire bloomed like a flower no one should ever see. Then the air screamed. They hit the deck as railgun rounds scythed overhead, blue-white streaks turning stone into shrapnel. Myra crawled to cover behind a jagged slab of something that might have once been a bunker. Her helmet buzzed with static, comms fried from the first blast. She moved on instinct now. She liked instinct. It never asked for justification. The squad scattered. Brannick caught a shot through the thigh, blood like paint. Someone screamed behind her. Someone else stopped screaming altogether. She vaulted from cover to cover, pushing forward even as logic told her to fall back. Her boots were melting at the edges. Her rifle was overheating. Her lungs were raw, but forward was the only direction that felt like home. She reached the base of the hill. The relay spike rose from the crater like a needle stabbed into the heart of a corpse. Twisted metal, alien glyphs, half shielded by automated turrets still running on ghost code. She had one shot, one charge left in her rail launcher. One heartbeat. She lined up the shot. The launcher jammed. A scream clawed its way out of her throat, not in fear, but fury. She slammed the launcher into the rock, once, twice, 3 times, until it clicked, until it listened, until the fire in her chest became real. Then she fired. The shot tore through the air, a line of blue rage. It hit the relay dead center. It exploded like memory, like every face she'd never see again. Like home burning. The hill buckled. The relay cracked. Sparks like stars spilled out of its wounds. But it didn't fall. Not all the way. She stared in disbelief as its upper half teetered, caught, and held, alive enough to function. Transmit. Coordinate. Her breath caught in her throat. Then the turret swiveled toward her. A humming began. The sound of calculation, of precision, of execution. Myra looked down at her rifle. Empty. She looked up. There was no cover. No time. Only choice. She ran. Not away. Toward the turret. Toward the tower. Toward death. She sprinted up the incline, lungs burning, boots skidding on slag. The turret whined, tracking. Her hands found a breach in the relay's outer casing, hot enough to blister. She pulled herself up. Gunfire bit at the rock near her legs. Still she climbed. A round clipped her arm, white-hot agony. She screamed, didn't stop. Climbed, reached the relay's core housing, and planted her last charge. She looked up at the stars through the cracked sky, thought of Danny, of the stone he never brought home, of her mother crying over a casket that never had weight. Then she smiled. She detonated the charge. The explosion was less fire, more light. A shockwave of brilliance that swallowed her silhouette as the relay tower fell at last, screaming its death in a frequency no one alive would ever unhear. In the command cruiser orbiting the planet, Zervel felt it like a ripple in a pond of glass. The relay link died. The grid collapsed. Blindness spread through Alkai's systems like a virus made of silence. A single human had done this. Not with permission, not with calculation, but with conviction. The Council watched as human forces surged forward on every front, capitalizing on the breach. Zervel studied the data, tried to reconcile the math. Failed. They do not calculate probability, it murmured, voice quiet with revelation. They create it, and far below, in the ruins of Cindergate, the dust began to settle. The hill where Myra had made her stand was nothing but glowing rubble. But in the red ash, something strange remained. A stone, rough, blackened, balanced upright, as if placed by a careful hand. No one could explain it. No one ever moved it. And no wind, no fire, no storm ever knocked it down. The gravlift shuddered as it rose through the superstructure of the stolen dreadnought, dragging Captain Elias Rourke toward the bridge like a bullet toward bone. His uniform was half-charred, missing a sleeve, and reeked of smoke and void rot. Blood, his or someone else's, streaked his knuckles. His pulse thudded like a war drum beneath the silence. He didn't check the wounds. Not yet. Pain was a language he could speak later. They had 30 minutes before the Alkai realized what the Revenant really was. It had once been their flagship, sterile, beautiful, and dead-eyed like everything else they built. Now it ran on jury-rigged fusion cells and spit static from half its systems. The humans aboard called it revenge wrapped in hull plating. It fit. Elias stepped onto the bridge. 6 crew, all volunteers. No uniforms, no ranks, just names carved into their gear, worn like prayers. The youngest was 17. The oldest had lost her legs on Andrews 4 and built new ones from tank tread and rage. None looked up when Elias entered. They knew what came next. Power spike on core channel 3, muttered Tam, the pilot, chewing gum with a kind of focused defiance that dared the universe to give her one more obstacle to chew through. They're pinging us. probably wondering why their dreadnought is now pointed at their own relay gate. Rourke leaned over her console. Do we look like we're answering? Tam grinned. Thought not. Elias turned to the viewport. The Alki gate bloomed in space ahead, a silver iris of linked relays humming with enough power to route entire fleets across the spiral arm. It was beautiful in the way guillotines were beautiful, sharp, final, and they were going to burn it. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled the last data chip from his coat and slotted it into the core interface. It contained every name from Cindergate. Myra Valdez's last transmission, footage of her climb, the stone, the silence after. Broadcast this on every frequency, he ordered. Loop it. Juno, the comms tech, hesitated. It's raw. No polish. No context. Good, Rourke said. Let them feel it. The image sparked across the ship's battered screens. Myra's face, dirt-smeared and radiant in that final moment, eyes full of the impossible. If this is the end, she had said, let it echo. Elias closed his eyes. Let echo. He tapped the detonator on his belt. 24 charges laced through the Revenant's spine. Enough to rupture the core. Enough to scatter the gate into stardust and memory. Someone had to light the match. He turned to the crew. His voice, when it came, wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was made of granite and graves and the weight of every goddamned compromise he'd ever survived. This won't save Earth, he said. This won't bring anyone back. But it'll matter. And in the end, that's all we've got. One by one, they nodded. One by one, they stayed. Tam set their course. Straight into the gate. On the far side of the sector, the Alki fleet received the signal. First disbelief, then analysis, then dread. The humans were not trying to escape. They were delivering something. A message. And a reckoning. Admiral V. Star, bred for probability matrices and combat projection, whispered the unthinkable. They're throwing themselves away. No, her adjutant corrected, voice low and trembling. They are planting themselves, so something else can grow. The Revenant breached the outer ring. Turrets spun. Too slow. Interceptors scrambled. Too late. And in the heart of that broken dreadnought, Elias Rourke stood at the edge of the fusion chamber, hand on the trigger, watching the stars flicker like old film. He thought of Myra, of her brother, of the stone no one moved. He thought of every time they'd been called savages, unstable, irrational. And maybe they were. Maybe they were the galaxy's bad dream. But they were awake now. He clicked the detonator. Nothing happened. The lights dimmed. Sparks rained from the ceiling. No explosion. Just silence. Tam, he called. She swore, already at the panel. It's the failsafe. Alki redundancy system kicked in. We need manual overload. He didn't hesitate. He started moving. Through flickering corridors. Through smoke and static and blood. Down into the belly of the beast. The overload chamber was sealed behind an Alki biological lock. He tore through it with a crowbar made from a dismantled coolant strut. His fingers were black with coolant oil. His breath came in ragged bursts. Behind him, the countdown began, Alki fleet closing. He had minutes. Maybe less. The core pulsed, huge and red and angry. He climbed the scaffolding, found the kill switch buried under 30 tons of shielded steel. He reached. His shoulder gave. He screamed. And then, a hand beside his. Tam. Her gum was gone, but the grin was still there. You're not doing this alone, old man. They pulled together, and the switch flipped. Everything turned white. From orbit, the gate vanished. A star bloomed in its place. The shockwave rewrote local gravity for 4 minutes. Every Alki vessel within 5,000 kilometers shut down, and in its wake, silence. Then the signal, from somewhere beyond the reach of their sensors. A single phrase, broadcast in every language humans had learned to pronounce. We are not diplomats. We are not beasts. We are the fire between. We are the ones who choose. Years later, a monument stood on the ruins of that battlefield, built not by humans, but by Alki hands. No names, just a circle of stones, balanced carefully, impossibly, against time and storm and gravity. They called it the place where logic died, and hope began to learn a new name.